Such a great learning experience, being with handling risky business. Learn life skills and financial tips, opportunistic, you just can't miss it. Let this be a stepping stone towards your ambitions. Such a great learning experience, being with handling risky business. Learn life skills and financial tips, opportunistic, you just can't miss it. Let this be a stepping stone towards your ambitions. Such a great learning experience, being with handling risky business. Learn life skills and financial tips, opportunistic, you just can't miss it. Let this be a stepping stone towards your ambitions. Such a great learning experience, being such a great learning experience.
Welcome to Drop Mic Conversations with me, your host, Coach Mo, and this is a Legacy Builder production brought to you by Handling Risky Business. Handling Risky Business is a nonprofit organization that is seeking to make a 360-degree investment in today's youth and families.
Such a great learning experience, being with handling risky business. Learn life skills and financial tips, opportunistic, you just can't miss it. Let this be a stepping stone towards your ambitions. Such a great learning experience, being with handling risky business. Learn life skills and financial tips, opportunistic, you just can't miss it. Let this be a stepping stone towards your ambitions. Such a great learning experience, being with handling risky business. Learn life skills and financial tips, opportunistic, you just can't miss it. Let this be a stepping stone towards your ambitions. Such a great learning experience, being such a great learning experience, being with handling risky business. Learn life skills and financial tips, opportunistic, you just can't miss it. Let this be a stepping stone towards your ambitions. Such a great learning experience.
All right, hello. I want to make sure. Can you see us, Troy King? It looks like you are in the backstage, and I think I did that wrong. So just I apologize. You can see everything? Okay. No, you hit the link Mo sent you by mistake, I think, because I think if you just go on your regular LinkedIn, it should be showing, but I don't know. We'll see. Don't worry about it. As long as you can see everything, we're gonna keep going with the flow. All right, we got about 5 more minutes. The good thing is everything's going to be recorded, so we'll still be able to put these gems back out on the universe.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. 2 seconds. Mo, I didn't even tell you about my bracelets, but I'll tell you later. So.
Oh. I gotta ask you that question too when we get started. Like,
Okay.
What are y'all tired of these traditional Father's Day gifts? The ties and the
coffee mugs. See, my love language is acts of consideration. I forgot the true word for it. So as long as they do something for me, I'm good. I haven't opened my Valentine's Day gift yet, but I know I got something. So acts of giving, I think that one is called. I can't hear you now.
Oh, I'm
Oh, okay, you were too. I got you. I got you. I didn't know if you were talking to me, so it's all good.
listen, I definitely do not want to be the technology person going forward.
All right,
I
we
just
need you.
want to
We need.
show up.
We'll reach out to Garrett Broff today. Matter of fact, let's see you on.
Well, the good thing, Kareem, I am
Oh,
on my LinkedIn Live. We're showing up perfectly.
beautiful.
So if people go on that back link, I'll have to just tell them to go out, go back
Oh,
into the
yep, I
regular
see it.
LinkedIn.
I see
And
it.
yeah,
Wow.
that's good. On my LinkedIn Live. Oh, I sound country. Showing up perfectly. So if people go on that back link, I'll have to just tell them to go out, go back into the regular LinkedIn. And yeah.
Wow.
I'm on my LinkedIn Live.
Such a great learning experience. Being with handling risky business. Learn life skills and financial tips. Opportunistic, you just can't miss it. Let this be a stepping stone towards your ambitions. Such a great learning experience. Being with handling risky business. Learn life skills and financial tips. Opportunistic, you just can't miss it. Let this be a stepping stone towards your ambitions. Such a great learning experience. Being with handling risky business. Learn life skills and financial tips. Opportunistic, you just can't miss it. Let this be a stepping stone towards your ambitions. Such a great learning experience. Being such a great learning experience. Being with handling risky business. Learn life skills and financial tips. Opportunistic, you just can't miss it. Let this be a stepping stone towards your ambitions. Such a great learning experience. Being with handling risky business. Learn life skills and financial tips. Opportunistic, you just can't miss it. Let this be a step. Such a great learning experience. Being with handling risky business. Learn life skills and financial tips. Opportunistic, you just can't miss it. Let this be a stepping stone towards your ambitions.
All right. It is 11 o'clock on the dot, and we are not starting on late folk time. Welcome, everyone, to Drop the Mic Conversations with me, your host, Coach Mo, and I'm so excited to bring this platform to everyone today. This platform was created to provide awareness, education, and empowerment on various topics where we know there are some known gaps within, this ability to just communicate some real information to other people. So the episodes are going to be aired every month, and they'll have a different series or topic that will be attached to them. And of course, as we know what's right around the corner, Father's Day, we wanted to make sure we took time to capitalize on such an important celebratory day, but also just to open up some conversations around fatherhood, a topic that is very delicate to me myself. And we have a special guest today. He is the father of many, many kids. And before y'all start judging, don't go around asking,
Hey.
or saying, yeah, he got all these baby mamas. No, no. But he has been delegated as a community father to so many, and has filled the voids in so many young people's lives as it relates to just having a father figure. So who better than to have come on here and be a subject matter expert and share his story, his gems, etc., than Mr. Kareem Edwards, my friend, a true leader that I admire, and a man that stands behind his word. When he says he's going to do something, he does it. And he was excited to be on Drop the Mic Conversation. So I don't want to talk too long, because I hate when we have them long intros and stuff, because people want to get to the meat and potatoes, right? But let's go ahead, and I want to give you, Kareem, just a minute just to kind of introduce yourself to everyone, and why you decided to even, decide to be on this, because I think we need to learn, just because you're invited to the table don't mean you always need to show up. It should be a choice, right?
Amen. Well, hello, everyone. Coach Mo, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and congratulations for putting your words into action. And we'll probably talk about it later, but this is a conversation that we had over a year ago. So I salute you for stepping out on faith and creating this format to share and engage dialogue. Secondly, let me just commend you for all that you do in the community. Literally, you provide funding source, you provide inspiration, but then you show up and give of yourself in person. I've seen you at various community events. I know you just did an event with Junior Achievement. You've done things with Our Girls. You've done things with Cox Media for the community around the topics of financial education. So I am honored to be in your presence. And if you invite me anywhere, I'm there. And as I told you all the time, and I told your husband, outside of your home, I'm your biggest fan. And I may be in third place behind your dad, Mike, but I'm a big fan of yours. And I'm just honored to be here.
Thank you so much. You all are in for some real conversations today. And the reason this series was called Drop the Mic is because, Kareem, as we were kind of talking a little bit earlier, sometimes we have to put a filter on so many things, but it's time now that we learn that it's okay to really speak about some of the uncomfortable things, for us to really bring awareness to do better. We can't do better if we don't want to acknowledge some things that are going on in our lives. So I want to just start right away with the biggest question I have, because if people don't know that are watching, you just made a really big move. And I can't get my husband to even want to leave or even think about leaving South Florida. But tell me why, you decided to make the move from the Boys and Girls Club all the way to South Carolina to an organization that sounds like they're strictly focusing on fathers and families.
Wow. So Mo, the movement is a sort of convergent of three different things that went on in my life. First of all, I'm ambitious, and like anyone who's working in any career, they always want to grow and develop as a professional. So this is an opportunity for me to sort of expand my territory. Right now, or excuse me, in my role with the Boys and Girls Club as Vice President of Resources Development, I was in charge of a county. When I moved to the South Carolina Centers for Fathers and Families, I would be in charge of a whole state, and with a very capable and passionate team that is going to have a huge impact on making sure that dads protect, provide, and love their kids. But also, on a personal note, it's just part of my evolution as a man. As I've told you before, and I've publicly shared, my dad died on my last day of kindergarten. But I lived happily ever after. And there were so many people who stepped in my life who helped make my life fulfilling. In addition to that, a strong family support. But over the last years, and I can say partially due to COVID, I came to the realization and the understanding of my dad's role in my life. Even though he wasn't there, his impact was felt all the way through my life. I was thinking the other day, one of the last memories that I have of him is sitting on his shoulders at the Akron Armory in Akron, Ohio, watching a boxing match. And my older brother was there with us. But it's just one of the memories. So although he wasn't there all my life, I knew that he always loved me. So that personal void in my life is still felt, and it's felt now because I have daughters. So I bring the empathy of what it's like to be without a father, as well as the motivation of being a good father to my daughters. So that's the personal transformation that I've gone through. And then just the spiritual part, when you read the Bible, and again, that little snippet in the Bible where Jabez says, Lord, if you would expand my territory, God has given me some ideas, He's given me energy, and He's giving me ambition. So, with that, He's answered my prayer to expand my territory. So, those are the three areas that sort of converge that take me to South Carolina to work building on the foundation that Miss Pat Littlejohn and that passionate team has done for the last 20 years. And now we're just going to take it to the next level.
That is amazing. And when you think about even just being a kid growing up, you just don't even know these kind of positions are already being prepared when God has you destined to do certain things in life. Like it
Amen.
came to you. So your work was you noticed and everybody realized, and I think you're going to be amazing, helping bring so much of a stronger focus in South Carolina, but it's going to go everywhere. Like that may just be the primary location, but your reach is going to be fundamental because of your connected roots. So I congratulate you again on that achievement. You making some big decisions, and that means a bigger impact, which is what we as community movers and shakers are really trying to do. I gotta go on to the next question though, because I promised myself I would not cry during this segment. I
Tears
told
of
you
joy
all,
are accepted.
yes, this fatherhood topic is very, very strenuous to me at times, but also it's a motivator. But I know there's so many other people that share my same story, my same feelings. So let me just go on to the next one. In today's world and in your mind, if you really had to define fatherhood in just three little words, what would they be and why?
I will quote the philosopher Shaquille Aristotle, and he sums it up in three words: protect, provide, and love. That's what a dad's role is: to protect, provide, and love.
Wow. So listen. Protect, provide, and love. And that can mean, I think you even mentioned that, such a different meaning at different times of your fatherhood journey, right?
Absolutely.
So it's not like a one size fits all
It
thing
is not.
when it
It
comes
is
to
not.
protecting, providing, and loving. And providing, let's just even talk about providing. We got to be careful because providing is not always financially driven, right?
Mm-hmm. 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 Protect, providing, and love. It can take on new definitions and new meaning depending on, as you said, where you are in your financial journey. I mean, in your father journey. But providing, yes, it is financial support, emotional support. Sometimes it's in person, sometimes it's virtual, sometimes it's just being there, being present. There's a book that I've been reading for years, and I try to read it once a year. It's called The Cradles of Eminence. And it is a book that analyzes the lives of over 700 famous men and women. And when you look at the incidents of the fathers in their lives, the fathers are uh, alcoholics, they're overbearing, they're accident prone or failure prone, but they're all present. So, what it says that you don't have to be perfect, but you have to be there. So, protecting, providing, and loving, one of the key elements is just being there, being on the scene. But then the protection part, again, it's sort of providing protection, and it can be emotional protection. There's a old R&B song where the dad is saying, "Go ahead and cry, my son." That's a dad being there for a son, saying, "Hey, brother, it's already she broke your heart. It's this too shall pass." But he's providing emotional protection for his son. But sometimes it's stepping in and saying, "Hey, don't hurt my child." And then the
I mean,
loving
you know,
part is just the loving part.
even when you just said like just being there, I know so many people have had that moment where you're looking out in the crowd and you're looking for your daddy. You're
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
where
yeah.
are you, dude? Like, dude, I don't care about nobody else that came to see me. I just want my dad,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's
yeah.
powerful. You know, while we're looking at just, those three words, what do you think? Because there's a lot of them going around. What do you think
Right.
is one of the biggest myths, I think, right now, just about Black fathers in general?
Well, the first of all, the biggest myth about dads in general is that they don't care. But there are a myriad of reasons of why dads are not in the lives of their children. And this is not a black or a lower income phenomenon. Divorce or separation or absentee fatherhood permeates every level of society, from high net worth individuals to low net worth individuals, to executives and unemployed folks. It is just a phenomenon. There are over 1.8 million kids in the United States who are living in single parent households. And we know that most of those are single moms. In the state of South Carolina, there are 405,000 kids living in single parent households. That doesn't even include kids living in foster care. And again, the assumption is that more than half of those are single moms. So the myth is that the reason the dad is not in the life of the child is that he doesn't care. When in actuality, that's probably one of the least reasons. There are often legal barriers, there are other financial barriers, there could be geographical barriers, and there could be those situations where there was a child born and dad just didn't know. How many times do you hear a story where someone comes out in the media finding out that they birthed a child 20 years ago and 30 years ago or whenever it was, and they didn't even know that they were the parent.
Kareem, I be watching Paternity Court, and oh my gosh, it is so true how many kids are
Mhm.
still trying to find out whether or not somebody is their father. And oh my good, and you hear
Yep.
the moms where they've
Hmm.
decided it was better to keep it a secret because
Yep.
it's just so you're really right on when it comes to that. And according to an iHeartRadio article that was published called Debunking the Harmful Myths About Black Fatherhood, it was written by Zuri Anderson in June. She put in there just a few years after a 72 statistic made a debut saying that the National Center for Health Statistics released a 2013 study revealing that most Black fathers live with their children compared to their white counterparts. The problem with some of those statistics are they're based on whether or not people are married. And being
Hmm.
married doesn't mean a man
Right.
is not present in
Right.
his child's life. And that's how
Right.
those surveys are
Yep.
normally, not as conclusive as they should be to represent,
Right.
a whole economy of fathers.
Right. Right. And you can go down the rabbit hole. I mean, there's so many things that in our society could be set up to help dads to be better dads in the lives. Obviously, economic conditions are a part of this, but I was having a conversation the other day. So, part of my life growing up, we lived in the projects, again, single parent household. There were very few dads in the homes in the projects. But from what I understand now, if you live in public housing, if there's a man and a father and a mother in the family, that the dad can't live there. So why
Yeah.
structurally would you put someone in public housing but prohibit the dad from living there? Maybe there might be some requirements that the dad has to have a job, but there's just some structures that are set up that don't make it conducive for a dad, particularly a struggling dad, to be there for his family. I've had personal involvement with the dad 2 years ago. His daughter was Baker acted, and then he had two sons, and they had been living in a hotel while his daughter was in the hospital. The hotel prices went up because it was bowl season in South Florida. So he tried to go to a shelter. He couldn't go to a shelter because the shelters were set up for families. Now, if you were a woman with your children, you could stay together. But if you were a man with your children trying to go to the shelter, they had to separate you. And he didn't want to separate from his kids. So we basically had to find hotel rooms for him that were affordable. And we moved him to three different hotels over a series of days while bowl season was going on down here and the prices had gone up. But here was a situation of a dad who wanted to keep his family unit together, but even in a shelter, he wasn't able to do that.
And Kareem, and listen, that's a whole nother drop the mic conversation as it
Hmm.
relates to services for people experiencing those,
Hardships.
situations, because
Hmm.
it's really not as, oh, just go to a shelter. It
Yeah,
it
it's not.
definitely is not that easy.
Right.
While we're talking about just fathers being known as a myth to be absent, I do know we do though have a lot of absent fathers. I
Hmm.
want
Hmm.
to keep it
Hmm.
100.
Hmm. Yep.
But if a father has been absent, in their children's lives, what advice would you give that father to attempt to try to become involved? And what does that feel and look like, for someone who may need help? Like, they may not even know what to say. So how would they go about doing that in your opinion?
Well, first of all, um, you can't simplify it. There is no silver bullet. There is no cookie cutter because every situation is difficult. I have a very good friend now. He's a pharmacist. His wife is an executive with an organization. He's been estranged from his daughters for probably 10 years now. And he's reached out and tried to make contact with them. He's not sure exactly why he's estranged from his daughters, but repeatedly he's made an effort to reach out to them to let them know that when they look back on things that he made a concerted effort to try to be in their lives. So I would say, without understanding all the situations and the delicacies of communication and things like that, at least reach out to that child to let them know that you're thinking of them. I think that's the key element. But again, understanding that there are legal ramifications sometimes, just numerous issues involved with dads not being able to be involved with their lives. But the key thing is somehow get a message to that child that you're thinking of them, even though some things may bar you from having direct communication or custody or what have you.
And that's kind of brings me into the next topic that, woo, I don't want to get blackballed or anything from a Queens,
Uh-huh.
because I love everybody knows Coach Mo loves my girls and women, but
Hmm.
co-parenting when it
Hmm.
comes to allowing fathers to be present has sometimes been unfortunately used as a bargaining chip,
Hmm.
a measure of, if you don't give me enough money, then you don't get to
Right.
come see your child, or if I don't want you around my child, I don't want my child around some other girl or whatever.
Right.
How do fathers, like, what help? Like, where does a father go? Because I've talked to men too who
Hmm.
just about to give up. Like, they're like,
Right.
I just because I don't want to be with her doesn't mean
Right.
I don't want to be with my child. And I pay
Right.
my child support, but everything
Right.
is still like controlled by the
Yep.
woman, instead of
Yep.
allowing the father to have a part of it. What how do you feel about that? And what can a father do?
Ooh, that's a heavy lift. So again, there are many fathers out there. I can think of examples that I know of right now. A good friend of mine is a financial executive, and he has a little girl in Atlanta, and he has to travel up there. And there's legal ramifications of him trying to get access to his child, and he truly loves his daughter, but it's a challenging situation for him. So, two parts to it. Number one, ideally, it's great to have a great parenting situation with a loving mother and a loving father in the home with the child. But we know that that is not always the opportunity. So the next thing is for two adults who were responsible enough to get together and make a baby, then
Mhm.
let's have some agreement that we keep the highest priority being the best interest of the child. And I have to go back to
Drop
Shaq
the
because
mic.
Shaq, Shaquille O'Neal's story and the way he articulates it has just been so helpful in this situation. So Shaquille O'Neal divorced his ex-wife Shani, but they have
Mhm.
children together, and he's the one who coined the phrase "protect, provide, and love." Now, Shaquille O'Neal was the product of an absentee father. Remember, he had the rep song "My Biological Didn't Bother," but then Phil Harrison stepped in and raised him. They had a tough upbringing, but Phil made him the man and the basketball player that he became. So what Shaq did is now in his generation, he said, although I'm not with Shawnee, we have to have a consensual relationship that keeps the kids as a high priority. So he still decides to protect, provide, and love. And I think she just got married. He even supports her. Before she got married, he was this. I saw him in the media having conversations where he would acknowledge the fact that she had just lost her father. This is his ex-wife, but he
Wow.
always upholds the fact that she's the mother of his babies. So Shaq's story was instrumental with me because when I went to interview for this job um, with the South Carolina Centers for Fathers and Families, in my interview, I talked about Shaq. On
Wow.
the flight home, I log into my favorite podcast, The Pivot, and who was the guest? Shaq. And Shaq is telling this story about a dad's role is to protect, provide, and love.
Wow.
So we see Shaq as this funny giant, but Shaq is a very interesting character. But he's put a lot into this fatherhood piece, particularly because he was impacted by Phil Harris, and then he also went back and he met his biological father, and he found out that the reason this guy wasn't in his life was partly because of embarrassment, and he saw that this dude Phil Harrison was doing a good job, so he stayed back. And oh, by the way, he spent some time incarcerated as well. So sometimes it's good for the dad to be present, but if you're seeing that your child is in a good situation and you can't make it better, then you might have to take that, you know, place that Shaq's biological dad, he cared, but in caring, he saw that Shaq was in a better situation. So his caring was to not be present. So
Wow.
I'm just telling you, it's a complicated situation and every situation is unique. But the key thing is if you keep the child as the highest priority, then God will help you make the best decisions.
I totally agree with you. It's a lot of grown folks out here and they feelings.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's time to stop saying, oh, they're gonna be okay when they grow up. They children, they'll be okay. That's one of my biggest pet peeves, when I hear adults talking about situations that impact the children directly and they just automatically assume they're going to grow out of it. No, we
Yep.
don't.
They don't.
We don't
They
grow
don't.
out of it.
Yep. Your
Matter of
your
fact, we
story
live
is a
with it.
yeah, your story is a testament to it. I'm a 50 plus year old man with gray hair in my beard. And you talked about wondering where your dad was. So I played football in high school. I ran track and I had fans, supporters, people cheering for me. I had a family. My mother was always there. But I remember times, and it was just a fleeting thought. It's like you look up in the stands, like, wow, what if dad was here? Wow, what if dad was here? And now that I have daughters, every time that they make an accomplishment or they make an achievement, I think, wow, what if my mom and dad were here? What if your grandparents were here to see them? So it is a void. And one of the things I didn't mention before is in youth development. I salute all the delegated and deputized dads out there. I know in my life with the Boys and Girls Club and working in youth development over the past 20 plus years, much of my role was really being a surrogate dad. Yep, you're a youth development, you're a coach, and all of these things. But for the kids, even kids with fathers, you're still a surrogate
Yes.
dad. You confirming what their biological father in the home is telling them, or you're substituting for one of them not being there. But what
Yeah.
I also understand is that no matter what we do, the best we can give our children on a daily basis, it will never substitute for an engaged father being in the lives of that child, whether or not they're in the home.
I listen. I'm gonna get a drop. I'm gonna get a mic, going forward for our
Just keep
series. But I
dropping
get
it.
this every time you do. I'm just going ahead and drop the mic because I mean, like, yes, and I think also when we just keep going forward to onto these discussions, I think financial support kind of has some men feeling like that's all they got to do. I pay my child support. That's all I gotta do. I get her money when she need it. That's all I gotta do.
Mhm.
Like help keep it real with some of these fathers that
Mhm.
money can never take the place of your time. You being able to pick up the phone, and I think you were kind of mentioning now with the new environment where we're living in, it's kind of no excuse now for men to kind of take on a different approach to fatherhood, even in
Mhm.
the workplace. You want to
Right.
elaborate a little bit?
Well, yeah, so let's look at history. First of all, we can look at immigration or the Great Migration. With immigration, during the early 1900s, people immigrated from Europe to come to America to seek their opportunity. Most of the time, it was men who would take a ship over and they would come and get a job, and then they would gradually bring their family over later. I am a product of the Great Migration. My family comes from Alabama, southern Alabama, and Georgia. Both of my parents were born in Alabama. My mother was born in Montgomery. My father was born in Yorks, Alabama. But my grandfather on my paternal side moved to Ohio to get a job in the rubber industry. And then on my maternal side, my grandmother brought all of her kids to first Cincinnati and then settled in the Akron area. But what happened in most cases is the man would come first, find a job, raise a little bit of money, and then send for his family. So this was a
Right.
dad providing. He was providing from a distance. But this new virtual working thing and this new technology age and this whole creative class has created an opportunity for dads to be able to work, in some cases, work virtually, but not have to leave their children.
Right.
Unfortunately, the job that I'm accepting, it can't be done virtually. I have to be there. But there are numerous jobs out there where now it allows the flexibility of working virtually and at least the flexibility of adjusting your schedule. I told you the situation with my nephew. My nephew was raised by my sister, a single mom, but now he's almost a stay at home dad because he has two full time jobs, but he works virtually. So his
Wow.
daughter, Samia, gets to see him all day long, and he's on a computer in his office, but he's there in the house. He's there able to provide for her virtually, but he's also able to have a presence in her life as well. So for some dads, then this new virtual work arena provides an opportunity for them to be in the lives of their children. And again, this is a segment of the economy, but it doesn't apply to every situation. But I still go back to say that an imperfect dad who's present is better than no dad at all.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Because, one of the questions I was going to ask that kind of pivots to this one is, do you think that's going to impact, what fatherhood really looks like going forward? Like, since history was the father usually goes out, prepares everything,
Hmm.
gets the house ready, is the earner and all that good stuff. Now, do you think that's going to be different? And are women going to expect different levels of fatherhood now that there's a different environment of working?
Well, I think the first part is I am very optimistic about the opportunities for fatherhood, particularly inner city fatherhood, for two reasons. Number one, the first, which I've already cited, this whole opportunity for virtual work and things like that. But the other thing is, if you look at the philanthropic community and you look at the investment community, for the first time in history, they are focusing on the needs of people beyond just financial needs. So in the investment community, there's this whole thing about ESG, which is environmental, social justice, and then governance. Well, if you look at social justice, all the funds after George Floyd and COVID, all the funds committed to social justice really are based on improving the whole ecosystem of needy people. So it's not just their financial need, there's a key focus on social emotional development. And then there's an additional focus on academic enrichment. If you take and I list all of those ills that fall under social justice, okay, juvenile crime rate, wow, put a dad in the home, it gets better. Teen pregnancy, wow, put a dad in the life of the child, it gets better. Teen suicide, put a dad in the home, in the life, it gets better. So now that there is a focus on this social justice piece, you cannot look at social justice in a vacuum. You can't exclude the role of a father. So, if you're going to empower the ecosystem, then you empower the dad. You give him social and emotional support. You give him economic means to provide for his family, and then you put him back in. But if you leave the dad out and you just provide financial support to that family, it does two things. It ostracizes the dad because he says, "What do you need me for?" But the other
Right.
thing it does, it trains the family to say, "We don't need the dad because if his role is to provide and Uncle Sam is providing, what is he here for?" So we have to
Exactly.
change the structure and make sure that the structure is set up that allows the providence to come through the hands of the father, if that is the case. And when there is a father present, obviously sometimes fathers die and other things like that. But the other thing is we have to keep in mind that we have to look at it from a holistic standpoint. Look at the whole ecosystem. So it's just not financial providing, but it's also providing social emotional support. And then on top of that level, I do a lot of work with veterans, and PTSD is a phenomenon for veterans who have been in battle. Well, if you look at what some of these dads are facing on a day to day basis, they might be suffering from a little PTSD as well. So, the counseling for the fathers, in addition to the legal advice, in addition to workforce development, empowering them to have jobs and careers to provide for their families, all of those things are part of the complete ecosystem. So, I'm optimistic because the investment community and the philanthropic community are looking at improving the whole ecosystem and not just putting a band-aid on a cut.
Wow. Drop the mic. I mean, even stopping at the, emotional or the PTSD
Mm-hmm,
discussion,
mm-hmm,
I'm not a
mm-hmm,
dude, but
mm-hmm.
I know dudes, you all are quick to talk about, what happened at a sports game or who won this, what coach did this. But I don't know or feel that there's a man. I went and talked to my counselor the other day, man, and she made me feel like a brand new man, man.
Yeah,
I'm ready to
yeah,
really,
yeah.
that has not really been normalized.
Right.
And if we're talking about really including fathers the way that they should have already been included, it's going to come with a lot of needs for that mental health support. But do you think it exists? Like, are there, counselors out there that really will understand the dynamics of fatherhood, when there's really no studies on this? Like, like you just said, like they've been excluded for so long. So how could anybody have ever studied what they
Yeah,
would need? It's just, let's keep them
right.
out of the picture for whatever reason. How do they get help? Like, is there a hotline specifically for fathers to call?
Yeah,
Because most things I see when it comes to counselors is
yeah,
relationships.
yeah.
Well, relationship has nothing to do with a man just wanting to, strengthen his game or his shot when it comes to being a father. So where would they go, Kareem? Like, how do they get help?
So thanks for putting me on the spot. And I will get numbers, but there are resources out there and they
Okay.
are growing by the day. So if you're in the state of South Carolina, reach out to the South Carolina Centers for Fathers and Family. And we have 6 agencies throughout the state that provide counseling, legal advice, and all of the plethora of needs to support a father. But nationally, there are initiatives as well. And again, giving a plug to my favorite podcast, The Pivot, they had a gentleman on there, former NFL player, who just started a counseling line. I know LeBron was a part of a online counseling service. But again, because the investment community is focusing on this ESG piece and social emotional support is a part of that, there are new resources cropping up on a day-to-day basis. And as a matter of fact, I was in conversation with a brother yesterday. This brother is a local playwright. He's a producer and a poet. And I guess he said it, so it's all right to put him out there. His name is Darius Daltrey. And in conversation, he said, "Yeah, da 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 da. I was talking to my counselor the other day, and da 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 da." So it is
Wow.
becoming normalized that people are getting counseling, and sometimes it's couched under the word executive coaching. Sometimes it's couched under other terminology, but people are, one, starting to realize the value of it, but two, they are starting to publicly share it and publicly recognize it. I talked about working with veterans. I'm part of a program called PGA Hope that uses golf as therapy for veterans. And as I play golf with veterans, I started to realize that the first tee, we're talking about, the Navy's this, the Army's that, da 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 da. But by the time you get to the seventh tee, guys are starting to tell the real stories of nightmares and things like that. So there is a level of therapy that happens even with veterans as you play golf. So if that happens with veterans, there's nothing to say that it couldn't happen with dads who are dealing with issues. There's nothing to say that it couldn't happen with teen males who are dealing with issues, or even female. So we have to find these non-traditional methods, or leverage the non-traditional methods, to at least get people to start to deal with some of the things, and then enact the professionals to help them kind of tuck it away so that it's useful, so that they can comfortably say one day, hey, my dad battled drugs, and mom, drugs fought back, mom didn't. And on my last day of kindergarten, my dad died of a drug overdose, but I lived happily ever after. To be comfortable saying that, to be
Wow.
comfortable owning that. And then that allows you to move on with your steps in life and have those positive experience, because you reflected, you've digested, but now you're applying the learnings and those lessons.
And Kareem, you were just so nice enough to put a nice message into a new book that I actually just wrote. And I wrote it because I feel exactly what you're saying. The ability for a father to be able to reflect has been voided for so long. Journaling or writing has unfortunately had a female stigma attached to it, but
Mm-hmm.
we know the power of the pen. We know the power of being able to put your thoughts on paper. So
Mm-hmm.
in that journal book, it's 100 legacy building questions that a father can answer, and then
Mm-hmm.
pass that
Yeah,
book down
yeah,
to his son or daughter. And
right.
it opens even questions that fathers might not even be thinking about. Like, one of those questions gonna really hit some of these dads is, what kind of generational wealth are you passing down to me, daddy?
Yeah, right,
you know
right, right,
so I
right.
think, like you said, the normalizing the mental health. And I think you'll agree with me, any fathers that are watching this, your barber is not your therapist.
Exactly.
It's a great environment if you all want to invite a therapist into the barber shop, because we know a lot
Mhm.
of conversations seem to go down at the barber
Yeah,
shop.
yeah,
We need to start, like you said, normalizing having a therapist come in and help them not feel caught off guard, because the environment feels safe, right, for
right,
them to be
right.
able to open up and talk. Man, oh my goodness. So I gotta ask this one question, and I think I want the audience to really think about this question too. If you as a man could have dinner or just a cigar with three black well-known fathers, who would they be and why?
Wow. So you were you posed this question to me before, and I struggled to answer it. I know two who would come to mind. Uh, One would be John Coltrane. And it's funny because John Coltrane's drug abuse and all of those things are well documented. Um, but John Coltrane seemed to reinvent himself in music. And the whole concept of jazz is that you have this standard. So he has this song that he played, My Favorite Things. And he said, I never played that song the same way twice. So these are a few of my favorite things. I think it was in The Sounds of Music. So The Sounds of Music is the standard. But then with jazz, there's a solo. So when he played it, his pianist was McCoy Tyner. And to be both the conductor and the performer in this jazz rendition of a song that was almost classical, you translate that to fatherhood. There is a standard for fatherhood, but then you have to adapt it to the situation. So if Train was playing My Favorite Things outdoor at the Montreux Jazz Festival, he played it differently than he played it in the downbeat in a little smoke filled club in Harlem. And being a father is sort of the same thing. So I would love to talk to John Coltrane. It's like, man, how can we translate music and the whole concept of jazz into fatherhood, understanding that there is a standard, but we have to deviate from that standard. And sometimes we have to solo, but then sometimes we have to feature other people too. And you kind of have to, what my grandfather used to say, you lead, follow, or you get out of the way. And if you ever watch him on stage, when he's leading, he's got his sax up there. But then when McCoy Tyner steps in, doom, 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 what does he do? Coltrane steps off stage. And sometimes he would actually leave the stage and then they would feature McCoy Tyner. That's like a mother and a father. Dad has to understand, I'm the leader of this quartet. So sometimes I have to be in the front, but then I have to kind of let mom take the lead. And then sometimes we have to feature our children. So John Coltrane would be one. And I hope that explains why. Colin Powell would be another one, just because Colin Powell was just probably to me one of the most unheralded treasures of American life. Just listen of how he rose to the level that he did with this extreme sense of humility, but a strong sense of determination. So his example as a man inspires me to not just be a better father, but to be a better man. But I would love to have had the opportunity to sit down and talk to him. I've read his book and I've seen him give speeches and things like that. But the interpersonal connection would have just been great. And man, to answer that third one, there's just a long list of people. I would tell you one person who comes to mind is my good friend Ron Smith. He is Sloane Stevens' uncle. Ron Smith's dad was an immigrant from Trinidad who came to the United States and went to Howard Medical School. And he just produced this ecosystem of great people. If you see what Sloane Stevens is doing right now off the tennis court, she was just at the White House the other day. But Ron is one of the greatest men I've ever known. When Sloane's dad died, Ron sort of stepped in and became a surrogate father to her. But then Sloane's mom was one of the first African American females to win a championship in swimming when she swam for the University of Massachusetts. So that whole ecosystem of what Ron's dad started when he came over here and went to medical school, and then the ripple effect, and you're seeing it 2 generations later in the manifestation of Sloane Stevens. I'm a big fan of Sloane, and I tell her all the time, keep glowing on and off the court. And I say keep glowing because her grandmother's name was Glow. But if you just see the things that she's doing as a human being, and you see where it comes from her mom, who was a great woman, Dr. Sybil Smith, and then her uncle, who was a great man, Dr. Ron Smith. But I think that story just manifests something. So I would love to sit down and have a cigar and a drink with Ron Smith and Sybil Smith's father, Sloane Stevens' grandfather. So those are my three.
All right. I thought about that question myself and I was like, I came up with the traditional ones. Probably everybody
Uh-huh.
else. I definitely would want to sit down and talk to Obama. I was like,
Uh-huh. Oh, yep.
I,
He would be on that list
I'd
too.
have to
Yep. Yep.
I have to
Yep.
be like, you got to help me understand how, you balance, from what we could
Yes.
see on the
Yes.
outside, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, but I'd have to think about the rest of them. And, some of the questions that I had on here, you really hit, speaking about the inequalities that, men have faced as it relates to support.
Mm-hmm.
And most men aren't comfortable just saying, I need help being a daddy. Like, man,
Right.
I'm
Right.
I'm lost,
Yep.
and then a lot of fathers aren't surrounded by other fathers, so
Right.
do
Right.
you
Right.
think having a strong circle of, more fathers versus more men that don't have kids can
Yeah.
help you, build upon what you, like you said, how you have to find that foundation and support?
So let me answer that this way. And first of all, say if we accept that it takes a village to raise a child, then we have to recognize that the men in the village are deputized dads. So every man a dad. I grew up in Akron, Ohio, and where I grew up in South Akron, I can only think, John Talley and Darren Brown lived on Lake Street. They had a dad in the home. But the other black kids in my neighborhood, we didn't have dads in our home. So it was sort of like make it up as you go manhood. We taught ourselves to play football. We taught ourselves to play tag. We fought. We solved our own issues. It was very similar to the Little Rascals that, there were just not a lot of adult supervision and there was not a lot of male supervision. When we start learning to throw the football, it was Kenny Ford's brother Brian who showed us how to grip the laces, who was an older brother raised by a single mom. So I have to first of all say we have to deputize every man to be a dad, because there are circumstances where kids don't have a father in their lives, in their home. And this is not just for the men, this is not for the boys, it's for the girls too. So if you
Yes.
deputize every man in the village to be a dad, that means on any moment's notice, that man has to be prepared to protect, provide, and love a child, whether or not they have his 23 chromosomes. So that's the
That's
first
wow.
thing. Deputize every man as a dad. But then I also have to shout out to the moms, such as my mom, who had to wear both hats. That and when she got to a point that she couldn't catch my passes anymore, she had to send me to play football on a football team. When there were certain things that she didn't understand about me going through puberty, she would send me someplace else. As a high school student, I went off to a private boarding school. I got a scholarship. It was the hardest thing for her to do, but she knew it was the best thing for me
For you to
to do was
provide.
to go off to boarding school. So I salute all of those moms who are playing roles of deputized dads as well. But the point of the matter is that we all have to empower and deputize dads within the community to father or to dad on these kids. So, and it happens even as a grown man. Mo, I reached through this camera and I hug you because I know your father wasn't there and you were definitely worthy of his love. And I have to think about that as it relates to my own. I told you the other day, I was really reading the lyrics of what Mary J. Blige wrote in her song, The Father in You. When you really get down into it, Mary is talking about how she was trying to
You
be the
felt.
man for her mom.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
wow, a little girl was feeling this pressure. And I immediately text my daughter and said, I hope you never feel this way. And she texted my wife and said, why is my father sending me this text early in the morning? And I was like, and when I talked to her, I was like, I read these lyrics and I was just like, man, I know that I know that the women can have thoughts, but just let me know if you ever feel anything similar to this. And so the point of the matter is that if it takes a village to raise a child, we have to improve the whole ecosystem that we raise our children in, and we have to acknowledge the fact that in the absence of a engaged, loving father, then everybody else has to step up.
And listen, to any people who are listening, you've got to also open up the opportunity for you to mature as you learn the levels of why things happened in your relationship with your father. My biological father, bless his soul, Michael, is deceased, but my stepfather, Gary Fort, was always there just during the times of his immaturity, and as he was so humble to explain to me as I got older, and I was able to see why his thought process was the way it was. So Kareem, on the next one, we definitely gonna talk about, you know, the stepfathers who have stepped in and how it's difficult for them to understand how to take on that responsibility when you are younger, are just starting off in a relationship, and you really aren't even mature yourself, and you're taking on someone else's child. But I commend, if my dad is on here watching, I commend you, daddy. I love you. It's sometimes hard for me to explain because I have to say biological versus my
Mm-hmm,
real dad,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
my real
mm-hmm,
dad is Gary Fort Senior,
mm-hmm.
so he will always be that. um we're about to close out, Kareem. What is one encouraging message that you would like to give to fathers, since Father's Day is right around the corner?
Wow. Well, my encouraging message would be Happy Father's Day every day. I had these bands made up, and the fathers has the apostrophe S. It's plural. So
Oh,
I want to say Happy Father's Day every day, because every day that a child wakes up and he knows that someone, he or she knows that someone is in their life to protect, provide, and love, then it's a happy Father's Day. And what I challenge people in the state of South Carolina, and you know what, in my life in general, I challenge you to make it a happy Father's Day every day. So when you wake up in the morning, if it is a reality that it is a happy Father's Day in the life of every son and daughter that you know, whether it's not your own, then we get a band that says something else. But if it's not a reality, then we need to go to work doing what we need to do to make it a reality. Because again, most of societal issues, with the exception of maybe the stock market crashing, most of the societal issues can be, if not solved, at least ameliorated by a caring, engaged father in the life of that child. So I deputize every man and woman who are listening to protect, provide, and love a child, whether or not it's your own, but also take advantage of the opportunities within society today, the resources, the emotional assistance, and the encouragement that comes from podcasts like this and other conversations to step up and take care of the children, because it's true. The children are our future.
Well, I'm putting it in the universe. We already done claimed Shaq to come on the show. We
Oh, come
already
on,
done
Shaq.
claimed the pivot to come on the
Yep,
show.
yep.
And whoever else, that may be interested, if you are interested in coming in and speaking with myself and Kareem on our future episodes that we will have, since he has committed to being this co-host with me on any father, man, or young man episode, I really encourage you. You can email us at info@hrb360.org. Once again, this is a drop the mic conversation about fatherhood. I hope that you enjoyed today's conversation about this. And guess what? We already got our next guest, and this next show will be on July the 2nd, and it is with a queen that, listen, if you are known as America's marriage coach, I think everyone is going to want to be on this next episode to hear some of the gems from Dr. Jacqueline Del Rosario. She is a phenomenal woman who has been on many stages, and for her to just say, Mo, of course I'll come on. I'm just blessed and honored. We are going to be talking about, is there really a difference between love and romance?
Ooh,
I need to know.
that's deep. That's deep.
I need to
That's
know,
deep.
Kareem. You think
That's
it's a
deep.
difference?
There
You
is a
think it's
difference. There is a
oh
difference. But I want to
yeah, a
hear
lot of it got to do
her
with
opinion on it.
expectations though, right?
Absolutely. Raise the bar. Somebody said raise the bar. Change the
Ooh.
definition of what we expect to be good. So,
So
hey
I
Mo,
thank
can I
you.
can I excuse me? Can I give a shout out
Of
to
course, Kareem, the floor is yours.
so Ryan Seymour is one of those great dads. He raised a great track star by the name of Ashley, and he is a GM for the Best Buy store in Fort Lauderdale. He is a longtime supporter of the Boys and Girls Clubs and just youth in Broward County. But I told him I needed to buy a headset. I was going to be doing this webinar with you today, podcast, and he said, Kareem, you know what? I just support what you're doing. I want to give you this. I said, Ryan, you already support, because your story of how you fathered and dadded on Ashley has been an inspiration to me. He said, well, I still want to give you this. So I want to give a shout out to Ryan, first of all, for thanking him for being an exemplary dad, but also for providing me with this fine Logitech headphone and microphone. And hopefully you guys can hear me well, but it's compliments of Ryan Best Buy. So if you need something in the electronics field, please go check out Ryan. He's at the store on Federal Highway. But thank you again, Ryan Seymour.
Yes, I mean we definitely want to shout out. So I'm gonna need. I don't know if that'll fit over all my hair though.
Well,
I'm
we
gonna have
good.
to have.
He can
Yeah, we
cuss.
got.
They have the other custom tailored one, the in the ear kind. He's got all types. He's got all types.
Well, thank you, Kareem. Is there anyone else? I mean, this is a perfect time to just shout out all the fathers. I congratulate you, whether you feel you've defined yourself as a father or not, because guess what? It's time now for you to give yourself grace and mercy, and forgive yourself for things that you may not feel you have accomplished the way you wanted to. But the goal is just to keep on trying. There's nothing in the world that a child, needs the most than a father to give up. So if you give up, you've lost the battle. But if you keep trying, you keep trucking, you keep, wanting to make sure you do better, then I think that's where it ends. And that's where we can drop the mic.
Drop it, drop it, drop it. And
Drop the
I
mic.
just
See
shout
you
out.
all next time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Mo. God bless y'all. Have a great one.
Have a good one.